Confused by modern dating terms?
Master the slang with Speed Mingle.
Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's this expectation of pure clinical precision.
Right, like engineering.
Exactly. Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line in the bone, and the doctor just points and says, there it is.
Broken or not broken, it's clean.
Right. It's so clean, and it's incredibly comforting, I think, to have that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We have this deep-seated psychological need for things to be visible and easily categorized. A broken bone is just an indisputable fact.
But then you step into the world of human relationships.
Yeah, that's where it gets messy.
So messy.
Yeah.
Get into neurodevelopment and attachment theory, and suddenly that x-ray machine is, it's completely useless.
We're looking at a diagnostic landscape that is entirely murky.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you look at what's happening in the culture right now, people are desperately trying to build their own emotional x-ray machines out of, the most absurd, mundane objects.
Oh, you mean the viral trends?
Yes. If you've been on social media at any point in the last year, you've likely seen people filming their partners staring intensely at citrus fruits, or standing in their backyards pointing out pigeons.
And then using those moments to decide whether they should, cancel a wedding or not.
Exactly. And so for today's deep dive, I really want to unpack this with you, because we are seeing a massive cultural fixation on these micro-interactions.
Yeah, they've been branded as the orange peel theory and the bird theory.
Right. And while they sound like punchlines, they are dominating the conversation around modern romance.
They really are.
So I was reading through the stack of articles on these trends, and the mechanics are just fascinating in their simplicity.
Let's break them down for everyone listening.
Yeah, so the orange peel theory, which really took off late last year, is basically this. You're hanging out with your partner, you want an orange, but you tell them you don't want to peel it yourself.
Right, maybe you don't want the sticky residue on your hands, or
maybe you're just feeling lazy. So you hand them the orange. And if they peel it without a heavy sigh, without rolling their eyes or, telling you that you have two working hands, they pass.
They are deemed a worthy partner who cares about your small friction points.
Exactly. But if they refuse or complain about it, they fail. And the internet basically tells you they don't truly love you.
Which is wild. And the bird theory operates on that exact same wavelength.
Yeah, how does that one work again?
So you're looking out a window and you casually mention, oh, look at that bird. You aren't announcing a major life event. You're just observing a pigeon, right?
Right, just a random bird.
If your partner looks up from their phone, engages, and asks what kind of bird it is, they pass. If they ignore you, they fail.
When I first read about this, my immediate thought was that it is, frankly, borderline unhinged to grade a 5-year complex adult relationship on a Tuesday night chore.
It sounds extreme when you put it like that.
It's like handing your partner a pop quiz on a subject they didn't even know they were studying for. What if they just washed their hands? Or what if they're completely exhausted from a 12-hour shift? Are we really telling people to pack their bags because of a piece of fruit?
Well, the literal application of these internet tests can absolutely border on toxic. And we'll get into the danger of treating your partner like a lab rat later.
Good, because that part scares me.
But if we peel back the layer of internet absurdity, pun intended, there is actually something profound happening here.
Really?
Profound.
Yes, because the internet is instinctively grasping at a very real, incredibly vital psychological metric. You have to remember, love by its very nature is abstract.
It's intangible.
Exactly, it is intangible. But a peeled orange, that is physical. That is an action.
Oh, I see what you mean.
People are starving for a receipt of devotion. They want tangible proof that they are seen and cared for in the tiny, unglamorous moments of daily life.
So they are trying to measure, invisible labor. Precisely. The invisible labor of just paying attention.
A receipt for love.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in an era where grand romantic gestures feel almost, performative.
Yeah, nobody's going viral in these trends for buying a diamond tennis bracelet.
Right. They're going viral for a partner who takes on a tiny, tedious inconvenience just to validate their existence in that room.
And while TikTok might have slapped catchy names on these behaviors recently, the clinical psychology community has actually been measuring this exact dynamic for decades.
Which is where we move from internet speculation to hard science.
Exactly. We have to look at the work of Dr. John and Julie Gottman at the University of Washington.
Oh, the Gottmans. They run what is famously known as the Love Lab,
They
right?
do. And the Gottmans coined a term that perfectly encapsulates both the orange and the bird. They call them bids for connection.
I was looking at their definition of a bid, and it is incredibly broad.
It really is. It's not just asking for a favor. Right. A bid is literally any attempt from one partner to another for affirmation, affection, or attention. It can be a question, a lingering look, a sigh,
A touch.
or just pointing out a bird.
Because when you point out that bird, you are not actually trying to transfer ornithological data to your partner.
Right. The bird is totally irrelevant.
The bird is irrelevant.
Yeah.
What you are actually saying is, I am experiencing a moment of reality right now, and I want you to step into it and experience it with me.
I want to know that we are connected.
Exactly.
So I was going through the data from the Gottman's famous 7-year study on newlywed couples, and the statistics on these bids are genuinely staggering.
They really are.
It's the kind of data that makes you want to immediately apologize to anyone you've ever dated for every time you looked at your phone while they were talking.
Oh, I know the feeling.
They observed these couples and categorized their responses to these bids into 2 main behaviors: turning toward and turning away.
Right. So turning toward is the passing grade. It means you acknowledge the bid,
You put the phone down.
you put the phone down, you look at the bird, you peel the orange, or even if you can't peel the orange because you're busy, you warmly engage.
Like saying, I can't right now, but I will in 5 minutes.
Yes. You validate the attempt, you let them know you heard the bid.
Yeah.
Turning away is the exact opposite.
It's silence.
It's silence, it's ignoring them. Or it's responding with hostility, like scoffing, rolling your eyes,
Right.
or treating their attempt to connect as an annoying interruption.
And the gap between the successful couples and the divorced couples in that study all comes down to those responses, doesn't it?
It really does. The couples who were still happily married 6 years later were turning toward each other's bids 86% of the time.
86%. They were in a near constant state of validating each other's existence.
But the couples who ended up divorced, they were only turning toward bids 33% of the time.
Wow, just think about the math on that.
It's brutal. 2 out of every 3 times one person reached out for a tiny moment of emotional safety or shared reality, they were met with a wall.
I keep picturing it like 2 people playing catch in a park. Throwing the baseball is the bid.
That's a great analogy.
If I throw it to you and you catch it, smile, and throw it back, we're engaged in a shared activity. We're turning toward each other.
Right.
But if I throw you the ball and you don't even lift your glove, the ball just hits your chest and rolls away into the grass. I have to go walk over, pick it up, brush it off, and I try again.
And that gets exhausting.
Exactly. If you keep letting the ball drop over and over, I am eventually going to stop throwing it. I'm going to take my ball and go home.
And that analogy gets to the core of how relationships actually end. Human nature wants to find the singular explosive narrative, you know?
Oh, for sure. We look for the affair, the massive financial betrayal.
The screaming match where someone throws a plate at the wall. We look for the broken bone on the x-ray.
But that's not usually what happens, is it?
No, clinical observation shows that relationships rarely die from a single explosion. They die from the 1,000 paper cuts.
1,000 unpeeled oranges.
1,000 ignored birds. It is the slow, agonizing realization that your partner is not a safe emotional harbor.
But, and here's where I want to pivot a bit. This brings me back to the danger of the viral trends and what therapist Sarah Elordi calls gotcha culture.
Oh, this is such an important point.
Because if we hyperfixate on the idea that every single unpeeled orange is a paper cut that will destroy the marriage, we induce a state of constant paranoia.
Yes, the algorithm is essentially training people to set silent traps for the person they love.
I'm going to ask him to do this, and if he fails, I have video proof that he's a terrible partner. It's wild.
It creates a deeply toxic environment of algorithm-induced anxiety. You stop viewing your partner as a complex, three-dimensional human being who might just have a headache.
Right.
And you start viewing them as a pass-fail subject in an experiment they didn't even consent to.
Right. A failure to peel an orange might genuinely just mean they had a grueling day at work.
Exactly. And if we assume malice or a lack of love every time a partner misses a bid, we are shrinking human complexity down to an absurd metric.
Which naturally brings up the cultural juggernaut of love languages.
Oh, there we go.
Whenever the orange peel theory pops up online, the comments are immediately flooded with people debating love languages.
Always.
Someone will say, well, peeling an orange is an act of service, but what if his love language is words of affirmation?
Right.
We all know Gary Chapman's framework, right? acts of service, words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, physical touch.
We treat these 5 categories like they are an established, undeniable law of human psychology.
Right alongside Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
We do treat it as empirical fact, and that is actually a massive blind spot in our cultural understanding of relationships.
Why is that?
Well, it is vital to look at the origins of Chapman's work. Gary Chapman is a Baptist minister.
Really? I don't think most people know that.
Yeah, his book, which was published back in 1992 and has sold over 20 million copies, is based entirely on his pastoral observations, counseling couples within his specific community.
So it's not a scientific study.
No, it is not based on peer-reviewed, empirical scientific methodology.
I think that fact alone would shock a huge portion of people who swear by it.
Oh, absolutely.
I was reading through the 2022 study published in PLOS 1 that analyzed the love languages, and the researchers essentially found that the empirical evidence supporting Chapman's claims is incredibly weak.
The PLOS-1 study is a perfect example. They rigorously tested the core assumptions of the book, specifically the idea that people have one primary love language and that couples who match or speak each other's preferred language experience higher relationship satisfaction.
And what did they find?
The data just didn't support it in a statistically significant way. Some couples showed a slight benefit, while others showed absolutely no correlation.
Wow.
And a subsequent 2024 psychological critique went even further, highlighting a profound paucity of empirical work.
So basically a lack of actual data.
Exactly. And they challenged the validity of restricting human affection to just these 5 rigid buckets.
The danger there is that if you rigidly subscribe to love languages or to the orange peel test, you might actually be blinding yourself to the love your partner is actively trying to give you.
Yes, that is the core issue.
Like, if you are waiting for them to prove their love by completing an act of service like peeling fruit, and they fail because they are exhausted, you might completely miss the fact that they are the same person who stays up late to listen to your anxieties.
Or holds you while you cry, or works overtime to support the family.
You're punishing someone for not loving you in the exact specific font you requested,
while ignoring the massive billboard of affection they are painting right in front of you.
Have you ever done that? It's a question for anyone listening right now to ask themselves. Have you ever set a silent trap, waiting for a partner to fail, just to confirm your own deep-seated anxieties?
It is a terrifyingly easy habit to fall into.
Because it gives you a sense of control, doesn't it? If you set the trap and they fail, well, at least you were right. At least you aren't a fool.
But that habit of testing and testing leads us to the darker side of this entire conversation.
How so?
Because if a single missed orange or a single unacknowledged bird is just a bad day, what happens to the human brain when every orange is refused and every bird is ignored for years on end?
Oh. This is where we cross the line from TikTok trends into the profound, devastating reality of emotional neglect.
Yes.
I want to pull heavily here from the work of licensed marriage and family therapist Figs O'Sullivan. His definition of emotional neglect completely shifted how I view relationship trauma.
It's a game changer.
He makes a very clear distinction. Emotional neglect is not abuse.
It's a vital distinction. Abuse is defined by the presence of something harmful.
Like physical violence.
Yes, the presence of physical violence, the presence of a screaming insult, the presence of active manipulation or control. Emotional neglect, however, is defined entirely by the absence of something vital.
It is the sustained, chronic absence of emotional responsiveness. It is a void.
It's the silent killer of intimacy. There are no dramatic fights. Nobody threw a plate. Nobody had an affair.
But the relationship is essentially dying of dehydration.
Exactly.
O'Sullivan outlines 7 specific signs that your nervous system knows you're experiencing this kind of chronic emotional neglect. And when you look at how these signs compound on each other, it paints a horrifying picture of what happens to a person who is constantly turning toward a partner and finding nothing there.
The first sign O'Sullivan identifies is what he calls emotional surrender, which looks from the outside like you just stopped sharing your feelings.
And a lot of people mistake that for emotional maturity. They think, I used to get so upset when he didn't ask about my day, but now I don't even care. I'm just more independent.
Right, but that isn't independence.
No, not at all.
That is your nervous system building a calloused wall to protect you from the pain of repeated rejection. If you reach out 20 times and get burned by indifference 20 times, your brain eventually realizes that reaching out is a dangerous action.
You stop trying to pass the ball.
You surrender, which leads directly into the second sign. Your partner's presence and their absence begin to feel exactly the same.
That one is just haunting.
It really is.
The idea that they can be sitting 2 feet away from you on the couch, but the vacancy behind their eyes makes you feel infinitely more isolated than if you were actually alone in an empty house.
Because if you are alone, you expect silence.
But if they're right next to you, the silence is a weapon.
To survive that silence, the neglected partner often develops the third sign. They become a hypervigilant detective of microexpressions.
Oh, because they're starving for any crumb of connection.
Yes. They start living with metaphorical binoculars glued to their face. They are analyzing the precise tone of their partner's voice, the speed at which they reply to a text, the micro-movements of their eyebrows.
They are desperate to read the tea leaves to figure out if they matter.
And while that mental exhaustion is happening, the fourth sign sets in. Physical intimacy completely loses its emotional charge.
It either becomes purely mechanical, like just going through the motions, or it stops entirely.
You can't sustain physical vulnerability when you have absolutely zero emotional safety.
Which brings us back to Gottman's research for the 5th sign. It's not just that your bids for connection are met with silence, they begin to be met with active irritation.
The reluctant partner starts treating every request for attention as an unreasonable demand or a scheduling conflict.
Yeah.
Your very presence feels like an annoyance to them.
Sign number 6 is the outward manifestation of all this internal pain. You start performing happiness for the rest of the world.
Oh, the social media facade.
Exactly. You post the smiling vacation photos, you act like the perfect couple at dinner parties, creating this massive cognitive dissonance between the public facade and the agonizing private reality of your living room.
And finally, the 7th sign, which O'Sullivan notes is perhaps the most dangerous.
Yeah.
You lose trust in your own emotional reality.
Because emotional neglect leaves no bruises.
Right. Because there is no tangible proof like an abusive text message or a screaming match. You begin to gaslight yourself.
You start thinking, maybe I am just too needy. Maybe I'm asking for too much. This must be my fault.
To really understand why this absence of connection feels like a literal catastrophe to the body, we have to look at O'Sullivan's concept of the photobomb effect.
Oh, I love this visualization.
Imagine taking a wide-angle photograph of your entire life. It includes your career, your friendships, your hobbies, your physical health, your family.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
If you are in a long-term committed partnership, your partner has effectively photobombed that picture. They aren't just standing in the background near the trees. They are right up in the foreground, taking up 60 to 70% of the entire frame.
They become the absolute lens through which you process the rest of your reality.
And this is not a sign of toxic codependency. This is basic human neurobiology. Our attachment systems evolved to orient around a primary figure. We are wired for dependency.
So if a coworker ignores you in the hallway, it's a minor annoyance.
Right. But when the person who occupies 70% of your mental real estate, the person your nervous system has designated as your primary source of safety, looks away from you with day eyes, the vast majority of your world plunges into darkness.
And when that world goes dark, we experience what O'Sullivan calls the dingo response.
Yes. This is where the neurobiology gets completely fascinating.
When your partner ignores your bid, when they turn away from the bird or refuse the orange with a scoff, your brain does not rationally process it. Your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain that knows you are safe in a modern house with Wi-Fi and a refrigerator, goes completely offline.
It shuts down.
Instead, your ancient limbic system takes over. And the limbic system processes that emotional withdrawal as a literal mortal threat. It screams, I have been abandoned by my primary attachment figure. A dingo is going to come out of the brush and eat me, and I will die because I am alone on the savannah.
It sounds almost comical when we say it out loud in a modern context. We are actually running from predators. But the amygdala, the alarm bell of the brain, does not know what year it is. It only knows survival. When that alarm bell rings, it floods your bloodstream with cortisol and adrenaline. The physiological toll of chronic emotional neglect is brutal. You are existing in a permanent state of fight or flight.
And you can only sustain that for so long before the body physically breaks down.
Exactly. The prolonged exposure to cortisol leads to severe somatic symptoms. People experiencing emotional neglect often suffer from chronic gut inflammation, tension headaches, severe insomnia, and autoimmune flare-ups.
The body is literally keeping the score of every missed bid.
Eventually, the nervous system gets so overloaded by the pain of the dingo response that it initiates a shutdown protocol. This is emotional limbing. The brain says, feeling this rejection hurts too much, so we're going to stop feeling anything at all.
So hearing all of this, the absolute terror of the neglected partner, the physical toll it takes on their body, the desperate craving for just a sliver of connection, it's incredibly easy to jump to a stark conclusion. The partner who is ignoring them must be a monster. If you are watching your partner starve emotionally and you just keep staring at your phone, you must be a cold, heartless villain who enjoys inflicting pain.
That is the narrative that society loves to adopt, and it is the narrative that O'Sullivan completely dismantles.
Really?
Yes, this is the paradigm shift that can actually save relationships. Emotional neglect is almost never a story of a sociopathic villain and a helpless victim. It's a systemic loop. It is a two-person dynamic that O'Sullivan refers to as the waltz of pain.
The waltz of pain. Both people are dancing even if they don't realize they hear the same music.
Exactly. Let's break down the two roles in this waltz.
Okay, so on one side of the dynamic, you have what we call the relentless lover.
This is the partner we've been talking about, the one who feels neglected. Because their limbic system is screaming about the dingo, their body naturally protests the abandonment.
They get loud, they criticize, they complain, they demand connection, they might badger their partner with questions or even start arguments just to get a reaction.
To the relentless lover, they are desperately fighting for the very survival of the relationship. They are pounding on the door trying to wake their partner up.
And on the other side of the dance floor, you have the reluctant lover.
Yes. And here is the crucial insight. The reluctant lover is almost never acting out of coldness or malice.
They aren't.
No. When they withdraw, when they go blank-faced during an argument, when they bury themselves in work or their phone, they are usually in their own state of intense neurological overwhelm.
Overwhelmed from what?
They are trying to survive a profound, crippling sense of shame. They carry a deep-seated terror of not being enough. When the relentless lover comes at them with criticism or intense demands for connection, the reluctant lover's nervous system reads it as, I am failing, I am causing pain, I am inadequate.
Oh, wow.
To them, shutting down and retreating is the only way to prevent making the situation worse.
It is a complete and tragic misinterpretation of each other's motives. To the relentless lover, the reluctant lover looks like a brick wall. Emotionless, dead inside, uncaring. But to the reluctant lover, the relentless lover looks like a hurricane of impossible standards, a constant screaming reminder of their own inadequacy.
Both of them are entirely wrong about what the other person is trying to do, but both of them are entirely 100% correct about their own internal pain.
And because they are both in pain, they resort to defenses. This brings us to a phenomenon that happens in nearly every couples counseling session.
Oh, the intent versus impact argument.
Exactly. The reluctant lover, when confronted with how their withdrawal has devastated their partner, will inevitably throw up their hands and say, but I didn't mean to ignore you. I didn't mean to cause you pain. I was just tired. I wasn't trying to hurt you.
Which, if we're using pure logic, makes total sense. If I don't possess malicious intent, I shouldn't be convicted of the crime, right? Intent should matter.
It makes logical sense, but O'Sullivan introduces what he calls the car crash principle to completely shatter that defense.
It's a brilliant analogy.
It is. Imagine you are driving your car. You look down to change the radio station. You get distracted. You run a red light and you hit a pedestrian in a crosswalk.
Horrifying.
You jump out of your car, horrified, and you yell at the person on the ground, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you. I didn't do it on purpose.
But does your lack of malicious intent unbreak their femur?
No. The bone is still snapped. The blood is still on the pavement.
Exactly. In the realm of nervous systems and attachment, intention is almost entirely irrelevant. Impact is the only thing that registers.
So when you look emotionally disengaged, when you sigh heavily at the request to peel an orange or stare at your screen when they point out the bird, the impact on your partner's nervous system is a devastating car crash.
And when you immediately get defensive and shout, I didn't mean it that way, you aren't helping. Defending your good intentions in that moment actually destroys intimacy further because it invalidates their pain.
Your job in that moment is not to defend your driving record to a judge. Your job is to drop to your knees and attend to the broken leg.
That's beautifully put.
But how do people get into these cars in the first place? If we trace this waltz of pain back to its origins, why is one person utterly terrified of abandonment and the other utterly terrified of inadequacy? Where do we get the blueprints for these specific panic responses?
We get them from our very first environments. The sources dive deeply into how childhood blueprints dictate our adult waltzes. O'Sullivan identifies 3 primary origin points for this disconnect.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is what he calls the not good enough system. This occurs when a child is raised in an environment, a family dynamic, or even a broader cultural setting that fails to provide stable, emotionally attuned safety.
So it's not necessarily that the parents were overtly abusive. It might just be that the parents were incredibly stressed, overworked, or emotionally unavailable themselves.
Precisely. A child in the not good enough system learns very quickly that love is transactional. They must earn it through achievement, they must constantly anticipate danger, and they must handle their big emotions entirely alone.
That's so sad.
Because they never received consistent emotional attunement from their caregivers, they reach adulthood literally lacking the vocabulary and the neural pathways to provide it to a partner. When their partner asks for attunement, it feels like being asked to speak a language they were never taught.
The second origin point outlined in the research is competing attachments, which is often referred to as the third-party problem.
Yes, this one is huge today.
In a modern adult relationship, this happens when a partner continually turns to something outside the relationship for emotional regulation and comfort. It could be obvious things like an affair or alcohol addiction, but more often, it's subtle.
It's workaholism. It's an obsession with a hobby.
Or, incredibly commonly today, it's a smartphone. If your partner comes home stressed and immediately regulates their nervous system by scrolling Instagram for 2 hours instead of turning toward you, your nervous system internalizes a brutal lesson.
You are not the priority. You are competing with a glowing rectangle for their attachment, and you are losing.
And the third blueprint, which is perhaps the most heartbreaking to unpack, is a childhood survival strategy that O'Sullivan calls the invisible one.
This part of the psyche develops in children who realize that taking up space or expressing needs causes stress in their environment. To survive, they learn to make themselves as small, quiet, and undemanding as possible.
They learn that the best way to be loved, or at least tolerated, is to not be a burden.
It's a brilliant adaptation for a 4-year-old living in a chaotic household. It literally kept them safe.
But the tragedy is that when that 4-year-old becomes a 34-year-old in a marriage, the invisible one is still running the show from behind the curtain.
It is the part of you that automatically says, "I'm fine," when you are actually dying inside.
It's the part that prevents you from ever asking your partner to peel the orange, because the terror of being perceived as a burden overrides your desire for connection. So we have mapped out the entire landscape. We've looked at the viral tests, the devastating data from the Gottman Love Lab, the physical reality of the dingo response, the car crash principle, and the childhood blueprints that set the whole waltz of pain in motion.
We've covered a lot.
The massive glaring question now is, how on earth do we fix it? If a couple is locked in this dynamic, how do they stop the waltz? How do they get back to a place where they're safely peeling oranges and watching birds together?
Well, the sources offer highly specific, actionable steps for healing this rupture, but they require a profound amount of vulnerability. Step 1 is fundamental. You must collapse the blame timeline.
Which means giving up the fight over who started it.
Yes.
It's the classic argument, I only withdrew because you were constantly criticizing me. Well, I only criticized you because you were always withdrawing.
As long as you are arguing about the sequence of events, you are trapped.
You
You have to realize that it is a circular loop. There is no beginning and no end.
The loop itself is the problem.
Yes. The relentless lover's protest triggers the reluctant lover's withdrawal, which triggers more protest, which triggers more withdrawal. You have to step back and look at the loop itself as the enemy, rather than viewing your partner as the enemy.
Step 2 is what the therapists describe as seeing the fear behind the face.
Both partners have to develop the ability to look past the superficial behavior that is triggering them. The relentless lover has to look at their partner's blank, withdrawn stare and realize that it isn't coldness, it is sheer panic and a feeling of inadequacy.
And the reluctant lover has to look at their partner's anger and criticism and recognize that it isn't hatred, it is the absolute terror of abandonment.
Once you can see the fear driving the behavior, you can move to step 3, which O'Sullivan calls providing the missing experience.
The missing experience. This is the antidote to the dingo response.
It is. The missing experience requires one partner to safely and vulnerably express their pain, and the other to meet it with immediate grounded comfort in the present moment.
It's stripping away all the defenses and just stating the raw truth, saying, I feel incredibly alone right now.
And the response cannot be defensive. The response cannot be the car crash defense of, I didn't mean to make you feel alone.
Right.
The response is the power of the phrase, come here to me. It is physically and emotionally closing the gap. It is saying, I see that you are hurting. I am right here. You are not alone.
That interaction literally rewires the nervous system. It tells the amygdala that the dingo is gone.
Which brings us to step 4, which is the daily maintenance of that safety. This is what therapist Rana Khan refers to as practicing daily micro-attunement.
And this circles us all the way back to the beginning, to the orange peel and the bird. Instead of using these moments as silent gotcha tests to trap your partner, Khan emphasizes that we need to use them as opportunities for clear, direct requests.
You remove the trap entirely. You don't hand them the orange and secretly wait to see if they sigh.
Right.
You say, using clear communication, I have had an incredibly long, stressful day. I would love an orange, but I don't have the energy to peel it. Would you do this for me to help me feel cared for?
You make the invisible labor visible, and you give them a clear roadmap to succeed. And crucially, when they do it, you notice it and name it. You practice vocal gratitude for the micro moments.
But, is it okay if I push back on this a bit?
Of course.
Because looking at all 4 of these steps, collapsing timelines, analyzing the fear behind microexpressions, providing the missing experience, hyper-monitoring daily micro-attunement, it sounds utterly exhausting.
I hear that.
It sounds like a second full-time job. Who realistically has the baseline energy to manage their partner's nervous system at this level of intensity every single day, especially when we are all dealing with jobs, kids, and modern life?
It is a completely valid pushback, and it absolutely does require effort, but we have to reframe how we are looking at that effort.
Okay, how so? Putting your phone face down on the table when your partner walks into the kitchen isn't just a polite, exhausting chore you have to check off a list. Looking up and actively engaging when they point out a bird isn't just indulging a silly whim. These are not chores. They are biological interventions.
Biological intervention.
Yes, you hold the power to actively regulate the nervous system of the human being who makes up 70% of your world. When you turn toward their bid, you are literally lowering the cortisol in their bloodstream. You're increasing their baseline sense of safety.
That's incredible when you think about it.
And here is the return on investment. When you regulate your partner, you are building an emotional environment where both of you can finally relax. You aren't just managing their anxiety, you are maintaining the health of the shared ecosystem that you both have to live in.
That reframing changes everything. It's not a chore. It's the maintenance of your own habitat. If you don't water the plants, you can't be mad when you have to live in a desert. So let's look back at the incredible ground we've covered today. We started with what seemed like a pair of totally absurd, superficial TikTok trends about citrus fruits and backyard wildlife.
But by pulling those apart, we uncovered the hard empirical science of Dr. Gottman's bids for connection.
We navigated the incredibly dangerous, silent waters of emotional neglect. We unpacked the physiological terror of the dingo response, and we analyzed the deeply ingrained mechanics of the waltz's pain.
And most importantly, we mapped out the steps to stop the waltz, learning how to biologically regulate each other through direct, authentic daily care.
It is a remarkable progression. We went from analyzing a piece of fruit on a Tuesday night to dissecting the very core of human neurobiology and attachment theory. It proves that there is no such thing as a mundane moment in a long-term relationship.
Every interaction is either building the architecture of trust or slowly dismantling it.
So, to you, the person listening to this right now, the next time you are sitting on your couch and you feel that sudden anxious urge to hand your partner a piece of fruit as a covert test to validate your fears, well, pause. Put the orange down.
Do not set the trap.
Give your partner the grace to be a flawed human being who might just be tired. Use your words, ask clearly for what you need, and give them the opportunity to show up for you without the threat of a failing grade.
And if we take that one step further, connecting everything back to the architecture of your own mind, I want to leave you with one final provocation to mull over.
All right, what is it?
Throughout this entire hour, we have focused almost entirely on your partner. We've analyzed how they react to your bids, whether they pass the test, and whether their withdrawal is an act of shame or malice. But consider the other side of the mirror.
The other side of the mirror.
If you find yourself consumed by a constant burning need to covertly test your partner's devotion using social media trends, what does that reveal about the safety of your own internal attachment? What if the ultimate test of your relationship isn't about whether or not they will peel the orange, but why you felt so profoundly unsafe and so terrified of abandonment that you felt the need to administer a test in the first place?
Oof, that is a heavy, mirror-turning question to walk away with. Thank you for joining us on this exploration. Keep asking questions. Keep looking for the deeply human why behind the everyday noise. And we will see you next time.
Thank you for listening
and watching on the new Speed Mingle TV network.